that these funds made their way to folks who needed them the most. This pandemic has created three crises: a public health crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and an economic crisis. Today I want to give everyone an update on 7 programs that St. Louis County is administering to address these concerns. We have awarded $2.6 million to food distribution agencies in St. Louis County to provide food to struggling families, and so far we have delivered 3.5 million meals. This work continues. We are working with our regional response team led by Dr. Jason Purnell, who is part of Health Equity Works at Washington University, to help us determine if another round of food distribution is necessary this fall and what that allocation might look like. We have asked residents in some of our historically underserved areas to help us determine how to spend $7 million for expanded access to healthcare services. And this application process for primary care and for mental health services has closed, and we have received 26 applications. The residents who worked with us in the participatory budget process, along with our Department of Public Health staff, will be reviewing these applications, and we'll have more announcements in the coming weeks. We've reserved $4 million to work with federally qualified healthcare centers to expand testing in St. Louis County. And so far we have awarded funds to People's Health Centers and CARE STL. They each were awarded $578,000 and $1.5 million respectively to expand testing for COVID-19 in our underserved areas. We'll have more to announce on expanded access to testing on Monday. We've dedicated $5.9 million to child care relief programs. These funds are designated to help our child care businesses who have been impacted through closures with COVID-19. These funds can be used for PPE, for cleaning, or for any structural changes necessary to prepare for social distancing and reconfiguring spaces. About $1.8 million has been awarded so far in the first round of these applications. As part of our humanitarian response, St. Louis County has committed $1 million of CARES Act funding to go to domestic violence programs and shelters. We have 13 applications under review, and we'll have more to announce for this program soon. And as I mentioned last week, we have allocated $4 million for hotspots in Chromebooks for any St. Louis County student who needs assistance with technology to make sure that they can participate in virtual learning this fall. The deadline for schools to apply to the Digital Inequity Initiative, which is processed through our St. Louis County Library program, was Monday, and 22 of our public school systems and 24 private schools have submitted funds and submitted applications for these resources. We know that to get our economy going again, we need to keep our small businesses open. St. Louis County has dedicated $19 million in small business relief grants. With the help of our St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, we have 40 staff members currently reviewing these applications. So far we have awarded $8 million, and $4 million has been mailed to small businesses who need help. We have worked closely with the small businesses who have applied to make sure that they meet the criteria for this program, and we must be responsible with these funds to make sure they're going to small businesses who qualify. I am glad to see that these badly needed funds are making it out the door and getting into the hands of small businesses in our community. Transparency portal is available at stlcorona.com to review where these funds have been spent, to review what's been committed, and also what's been budgeted for the rest of the year. And you can also follow along the County Council's oversight committee hearings on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. to learn more about their role in recommendations and resource allocation moving forward. We have a lot of work to do, and we will continue our regular updates to the public to make sure that everyone knows what resources are available as we continue to move forward in these very challenging and difficult times. Thank you, and I would be glad to answer any questions.
Sam, how important have those CARES Act funds been in the fight against COVID in the area here? It seems to me that you touched a lot of crucial areas here.
Well, yes, we moved quickly early on with our stay-at-home orders. We moved quickly to prepare the community, and we moved quickly to get these funds allocated as fast as we could, much more promptly than they've been moved in other parts of the country. But we needed help in purchasing PPE early on. As you remember, we would make orders for PPE and they would be canceled by some vendors, and then we would get an offer to reorder from the same vendor at 2 or 5 or 10 times our original purchase price. Mm-hmm. It was very difficult early on to get these resources here in our community. To get access to testing, it's been very difficult to compete for these resources once we were able to purchase testing. We're dealing with a backlog of processing because the equipment to process these tests the equipment's overwhelmed, and some of it's starting to break down. But we need these funds in our community. These funds will help us a lot in all three of our crises, our public health crisis and testing and getting resources and expanded healthcare in our community, and the humanitarian response and rental assistance to keep people in their homes during these difficult times when a lot of people are off work, to help with these food distribution programs, which are very important. And then I think the small business relief program is a big deal, and I'm glad to see those funds are making it into the hands of people who need help.
Is there a particular part of these funds, of those 7 you named off, that you rank as probably the most important right now?
Well, you know, primarily our public health response is critical. Everything starts there. We have to get this virus under control as it risks overwhelming our health systems, and getting a good testing environment, getting a strong and vibrant contact tracing, getting folks to wear masks and follow our social distancing guidelines really is the key to keeping our businesses open and getting kids back into a classroom learning opportunity.
You may have noticed yesterday in Jefferson City there was a hearing on going back to school, where you had Randall Williams and the Commissioner of Education advocating for getting kids back in class, well, not particularly saying there's one size fits all. And then you had some lawmakers saying that kids should not be allowed in class until there's a vaccine for COVID-19. Are you still consistent with your advocation of virtual learning at this point, or where are you now at this?
Yeah, I think at this point, with the impact of COVID-19 in our community in particular, that I would recommend virtual learning to everyone who has that choice or that option moving forward. If we can get to a point where COVID is better controlled in our community, if the cases are declining, then I believe we can safely get back into a hybrid model. It's going to take a lot of training, and it's going to take a lot of flexibility, and it will take a lot of changes in our public schools and our independent schools. But if we get COVID managed better than it is now nationally in our community, if we get widespread adoption of masking and social distancing policies, then I believe we could get back into some hybrid model this fall.
My last one is, you have a lot of families who are having to adjust their work schedules, some parents perhaps having to leave jobs because of the all virtual prominence in schools right now. How concerned are you about the economic fallout that could happen because of this?
Well, this is, you know, COVID-19 is a tragedy in our community, and it touches every one of us in a different way. It touches everyone. It's touched our schools, it's touched our small businesses, it's touched people who lost their lives or have their loved ones who've lost their lives, and it's tragic in many ways. But I am concerned about the impact schools have in our economic activity and providing a place for kids to be safely while they're learning, so parents and family members can be at work. It's a real and significant issue, and we have to look for other options and alternatives for kids to be taken care of so their parents can continue working. It's a real challenge in our community. Well, I'm absolutely concerned about it. It's one of the many tragedies. In every complex problem to the extent that our funds allow, and we'll continue to do that.
You mentioned this weekend was the last time for public schools to get for schools to get the money for the Chromebooks. Any concern that by waiting this late, some schools may not be able to get the Chromebooks? Is there an adequate supply of Chromebooks for schools to get, or are we going to run into a problem there?
Well, most schools in our community have already provided a significant amount of technology to their students. And what we're doing is filling some of those gaps. We have somewhere around 300,000 students in our community, but many of them already have this technology, so we're filling gaps. Certainly, we can always wish that we could have been sooner to try and address complex problems in our community, but we're moving pretty quickly, and we're going to move as fast as we can to get all of our students prepared for a virtual learning environment to start off the school year, wherever that's necessary and possible.
And have you been in contact with the Archdiocese regarding recommendations for opening and closing schools? It seems like it might be a little bit more complex if they are in the county, the city, and various other
Yeah, the Archdiocese has been a great partner through this pandemic. We're in constant communication with the Archbishop and their leadership in public schools. We're in constant communication with our Department of Public Health. We have a great working relationship. We'll continue to provide feedback on their policies and their planning and their procedures.
And finally, with the lack of the stimulus checks coming from Washington and the cut in the unemployment, are you concerned at all that we may not have seen the worst yet economically from this disaster?
Yeah, we definitely need our federally elected officials to come together and find a compromise to address continued economic impact on our country. The unemployment needs to be continued. We all understand that it needs to be continued. The argument right now in Washington is what that number looks like. We also need more relief for our local governments. We know we need more relief for our municipalities. St. Louis County is going to try and help in that regard, but we still have some issues to address moving forward. We do not have control of this virus in our country, so there are still a lot of needs remaining, and I do hope that they can come together. I remain optimistic that they will over the next week or two. Other questions? Doug, you have anything?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you everyone.